Oh, thank you for taking time out. Obviously, we're here to talk about last up in Yuma County. Um, I guess sort of looking at the casting process of this film, it kind of worked a little differently, where like Francis basically kind of decided who he wanted and then sent everybody letters. What was it about his words, both in his letter and the script, that kind of spoke to you and made you want to get involved?
So I got the script. He sent it to me by email, and I read it one afternoon in one sitting. And I was like, oh, this could be cool. This is like a small budget kind of Paul Newman bag of money in the desert morality tale. And I was like, this could be really fun. I've never done this kind of thing, but I love these kinds of Sam Peckinpah movies. And then I think he might have emailed me and said he was going to come over and we had coffee in my backyard. And we talked about South Park for many hours. And I just realized this is like a buddy of mine from middle school. We kind of had the same sense of humor in seventh grade and then haven't changed it, haven't upgraded. So he just very quickly became a good friend and like a younger brother who I wanted to see succeed. And the script was very good and it was very um, interesting as like a dramatic thriller engine. And then he reached out to everybody who's, more conventional for the casting, Richard Brake and Jocelyn and, everybody. And then we did a table read, and it was very funny. So, like, although he had reached out to everybody to say, "Hey, I'd love for you to be in this film. I loved you in this thing. I loved you in this thing." Y'all could kind of this building the recipes for the meal. It really took getting it to a table read and all of us together to kind of realize, oh, this is a really fun, uh, sometimes slapstick
Mm.
movie, and that was very exciting for me. I'm always trying to inject stupid bullshit into the drama to make it funny. So, yeah, I guess like really, I realized very quickly in our correspondence that, and just in talking that, he and I spoke the same language, and I was like, okay, cool. This is somebody that I can trust to do the sound design, to do all of the stuff that I do for my films to ensure that they're going to be any good at all. So yeah, it was a thrill to work with him. It was a thrill to talk to him early about how the thing was going to get put together.
And you mentioned there the cast. So often, independent sort of lower budget productions, they're kind of limited with their cast. It tends to be, one main character, maybe, a small group of, two or three. Here there is, there's a massive ensemble, there's a diner full of people and everybody gets, everyone gets their time, to shine on screen. What was it like kind of, being involved in that ensemble? Because I imagine it's almost a bit like theatre in a way, I imagine, because there's all of you and you're all there, you're all kind of on set all the time.
It was really cool. That main diner space definitely felt like a theater, a stage, because everything was modular. Charlie Texter, our production designer, had brought in so much to make it feel like the space. But then basically every day they're turning the world around, and it's very obvious that everything is synthetic. There's no running water. There was like, it was very much a desert film set, like camping. Anything that you want, you had to bring in. And the cast at times would just be seated in their positions while the camera moved or while somebody was getting direction. And so I'm literally sitting in the booth looking across at Richard and Nick Logan, or Jocelyn over here. It was like a very, like, so much for weeks. We were just in our spaces, waiting for new guests to arrive for Jocelyn to greet and do the whole hostage situation shtick. Um, but it was a lot of camaraderie. A lot of the actors who started out in theater, Nick Logan and Richard Brake, Ryan Masson. There was like many people, Connor, like everybody had theatrical backgrounds except for me. So I always felt like, it was boot camp for me. I had to kind of pretend to be an actor, and I learned so much, particularly from Richard and from Nick Logan. Um, but it was a really fun acting troupe in a way that my other films are not. My other films that I'm the lead of is like me shouting the whole time and using the other characters like props in the scenes rather than like, okay, now we actually have to have the three of y'all sit down and it's become funny games and he's holding the two of you hostage. Like there was a lot more I guess like setup for other characters that was required of me instead of me shouting the whole time like my other films. It was really fun, and there was so much. Like I can't tell you, just the morale was through the roof. Everybody loves movies. Everybody got the joke of what we were doing, and then when the violence took place, it was so shocking and meaningful that it was just incredibly fulfilling.
Yeah. I mean, and what is it like, being that close to Richard Brake? I mean, he's a lovely guy in person, but he has this reputation on screen of playing these, quite nasty guys. I mean, just that opening monologue from 31 is, incredible to watch. What is it like when you're suddenly, presented with him?
Um, there's a moment in the long take where he's holding me and Jocelyn hostage, where he shouts like that, and it's really frightening. And he didn't tell us that he was going to do it, and so on the first few takes, Jocelyn and I were really frightened. And it was like his goal as the character playing the character was to intimidate these
Mm.
people. And at first, it's this kind of suave, hey, I've done this 1,000 times. I'm going to shoot you if you do this thing, if you don't pay attention. And then he's incredibly dangerous and quick and frightening. And that was really intimidating. The fun thing about Richard and me is that on day one, we were talking about movies, and I don't know how it came up, but I was talking about Adam Curtis, the documentarian, and I don't think he had seen any of his work, but I was like, oh, I'm watching his series called Trauma Zone about the fall of the Soviet Union. It's very interesting. It's on YouTube, and he and I were staying in the same hotel. And the next day he came in and he was like, I watched the first 3 episodes of Trauma Zone. I cannot tell you. It's so interesting. And then he and I just became buddies through Adam Curtis movies. And it was just like, it was such a fulfilling, like if you're a fan of Adam Curtis, anybody who knows, you cannot help but talk about how it portrays modern society, and like it's a reflection of what we're all going through now. And it was just, he and I got together so quickly philosophically about things that, we left being great friends. And so like that moment of me and him after he's been shot and I'm coming up to him and possibly going to kill him with a revolver, in equal parts was this anger. I hate you. You killed these people. You've held me hostage for the last several hours. But also I was like, this is my scene with Richard Brake. This is it. This is this, like, we don't have many scenes together in the film. This is a good standoff between the two of us. So there was a lot of high stakes desire to be competitive and to be like, I got to nail this moment because Richard's in this. And then on the other side, it was very endearing. It was like, oh, we're only here for a couple of weeks, and then I have to say goodbye to my buddy Richard, and he has to go off to England. And that's how it always is. So at no point was it lost on us that what we were doing was this like contained thing, and it's very rare. It's a leprechaun. You only get to do these kinds of movies once in your life.
Mm. And one that I really like about your character, knife salesman, is one, he's never giving a name. He's only ever referred to by his job. And I find him quite ambiguous. I mean, I literally wrote an essay in the Hour release that we're here to talk about his ambiguity. For you, as an actor playing him, how did you see him? Did you see him as being on one side or the other, or were you deliberately sort of playing around with those shades of grey?
I mean, really, it's all circumstantial. For me, I'm thinking about the plot rather than the character. And there's some moments where you get to see behind the curtain of what this dude is thinking. I have such an expressive face that when Gene Jones says, "Well, it sounds like a great plan, but I don't think it's highly unlikely," and he says this bit, and I'm looking at him, and you see me go like that, and just the furrow of my eyebrow and this expression of like, "What are you fucking stupid? You're gonna get us all killed." That says to me that my character, the knife salesman, is like a representation of what the audience is thinking, or kind of like a little bit ahead of the audience. And then there's times where I'm behind the audience, and that's fulfilling for the audience to feel smarter than the main character. Um, But then when it comes to the moral conundrums of leaving the baby in the car, all of that stuff, just the small degradations, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I was always trying to make it that this guy was trying to get to safety. And although he didn't have a name in the movie, Francis gave him a name, and we spoke about him on set as his name. But then, really, the whole time I was thinking about this guy, I was like, I feel like he's so earnest, and so I was like, this guy is earnest to me. That would be his name. Um, uh, and so like there were times where I would get kind of lost in the physics and the violence and the murder and stuff, but really it was about being a victim of circumstance. How do I get out of trouble? Like how do I get out of this thing and minimize the amount of pain that I cause, I guess.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I'm not convinced he's a nice salesman personally, but
He's not a good one for sure. He's a
no,
terrible
he's
knife.
definitely not a good one, which is
That's
what's
one of
maybe
my
one.
it's one of my favorite things. He's trying to sell Charlotte the knives in the beginning, and then she says no, and then she's selling him on the rhubarb pie, and he's like, "No, I couldn't possibly." She goes, "That's actually pretty good." And I go, "All right then, yeah." So it's like he doesn't understand the shtick of being sold to. It's really funny.
And I mean, obviously, you said earlier that you and Francis kind of became sort of like instant friends. As somebody who has dabbled in genre, you must be super excited to see what he's going to do with an Evil Dead film.
Yes, it's about all I can say about Evil Dead. No, Francis from the beginning, having done Yuma with him, has kept me very close on the property of what he's doing. And I'm excited. I can't wait to see what he does. There have been a few things where he'll call me and say, "Hey, what do you think about this?" But it's been very good. He's very confident. He knows what he's doing, and I cannot wait to see that movie.
Are you hopeful that maybe after going toe to toe with Michael Myers that you might be able to add the Deadites to the list? Even if it's just a fleeting sort of like cameo, you're hoping that he might be able to squeeze you in there somewhere, or maybe you yourself could be a Deadite. Or would you rather be a Deadite or someone that
I
fits a Deadite?
I told him, give me $1 and tell me where to show up, and I'm however I can help. Um, but no, I also told him like I have no ego. It's the same thing among friends. I think there's some stress certainly when working with Hitchcock that I might not get cast in the next one, unless you're Jimmy Stewart. But I have no ego with that, and really, filmmaker to filmmaker, I understand that it's a recipe, and if you put black licorice into the recipe, it might not work with the rest of the ingredients. So I never feel bad if I don't get cast in something. It's the filmmaker's decision, casting director's decision. So I would love to help out, but I'm not going to try and crowbar my way into something that might not be suited for me. He's got to make the best movie that he can, and oftentimes that means making it with a trained actor. I have no ego or gripes.
Well, I mean, you say that but you do have a ton of projects that you're either producing, directing, writing, or starring in. Which ones are you allowed to talk about? I mean, I quite like the sound of the Yeti, and I'm very excited for Redux, having been a fan of Block Island Sound. But what ones can you talk about?
Yeah, sure. So, my writing partner and co-director, PJ McCabe, who you know and love, he produced Redux. I acted in it. I'd worked with those boys on Block Island, and I went to college with them. And they were in a jam, and they were like, "Hey, we need somebody to be the love interest for our sister. Would you want to come in and play the boyfriend?" And um, I did, and it's a very fun movie. It's like a kind of heightened multiverse, kidnapping, murder, mother's love kind of film. It's premiering at South by Southwest, uh, and then the Yeti is like almost 8 years in the making. So PJ and I have been buddies with Will Pashota for many years. He was an EP of the Thunder Road feature, and he and I met 9 or 10 years ago. and he'd been working on this thing. He did a couple of proof of concept shorts in the world. It's about an Arctic expedition in the 1940s, the late 40s, going to save an oil baron's father who's gone missing. A couple people have gone missing. And so it's this kind of ragtag group of explorers that go into the Arctic Circle to try to find these missing people. And then they realize that it's a monster and that they have to kind of survive. So it feels a bit like The Thing. And they're still in production. We have a couple more days of shooting in Buffalo, but I wrapped all of my scenes a week ago. But I was out there for a couple of weeks. PJ and I got to get in the film. It was really fun, and it's a good chamber piece kind of story while also feeling very big. It looks incredible for a movie of that size.
Yeah, I've been very excited. I mean, I saw William Sadler on the cast list, and like immediately I'm like, well, that was going on the watch list. So you had me at that. So
Yes, William's great. It's really funny. I mean, the whole cast is really good. It's Brittany Allen plays the lead, and she is so good. She looks like Amelia Earhart and like Judy Garland put together, and she's so touching. And we had a couple of really good scenes together. She's really great. Everybody is so wonderful, and some people are from comedy backgrounds, so we also get to put some of that stuff in. Humiliation, that's very funny. It's really good. It feels very elevated and also theatrical. It feels like a horror movie from the 1950s or something like that. It's very good.
I can't wait to see that. And yeah, thank you for your time. And I look forward to. I always watch whatever you're involved with, so I look forward to what you bring out next.
Thank you so much, Kat. I'll come hang next time I'm in England. Let's hang. Let's get a beer. Let's get a coffee or something like that.
Some more Lego, you know.
Yes. Yes.